Can everyone on Zoom hear me? Can you hear me clearly, Councilwoman Martin?
Yes.
I can hear you. I don't know about, say something else. I don't know about clearly.
Okay, testing, testing. You're kind of low though.
Am I?
That's
Yeah.
me.
Is that- Oh, we're gonna turn the volume up.
Okay.
I can hear you pretty decently.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
I'm gonna leave that down.
so, Mr. Tarver had to take a pause, so we can go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for coming out this evening for our November 3rd council meeting. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, P.L. 1975, notice of this meeting was posted on the Borough of Pennsylvania Municipal Bulletin Board designed for that purpose. Notice is also posted on the Borough of Pennsylvania website at www.pennsboro-nj.org and was emailed to the official newspaper as provided by resolution. Additionally, in response to the state of emergency in New Jersey regarding COVID-19, this November 3rd 2021 meeting is held in the courtroom of the Borough Hall, 1 State Street, Penns Road, New Jersey, with no more than 32 persons present, and via Zoom online meeting platform. Everyone, please stand as we do the pledge of allegiance, and we can say it together in unison. Place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Madam Clerk, can you do the invocation, please?
So that your will and your will around you. We ask all these things in your name.
Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Here.
Councilman Giordano.
Here.
Councilwoman Martin.
Here.
Council President Vincent.
Here.
Councilman Randall.
Here.
Councilwoman Scarpese. Here. All present. Quorum.
All right. First order of business is payment of bills and approval of bill list. May I have a motion to adopt?
I make a motion to adopt.
Thank you, Councilwoman Scarpese. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Martin. Madam Clerk, can you roll call?
Councilman Carter.
Yes.
Councilman Giordano.
Yes.
Councilwoman Martin.
Yes.
Council President Vincent.
Yes.
Councilman Randall.
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is introduction of resolutions for consideration by consent. The first resolution is 11-121, 2021. That is a refund tax paid as totally disabled veteran. The next resolution is 11-122, 2021, and that is council tax bill as 100% totally disabled veteran. The next item on the agenda, and I apologize, I'm reading it, 2021-11, 120,
Yes.
I'm reading it like a baby, my apologies. 2021-11-123, premium bid turnover to the borough. 2021-11-124, canceled tax sale certificate. 2021-11-125, that's a resolution authorizing the execution of a pilot agreement with PGGA-PENNS LLC for a pilot agreement pursuant to New Jersey statute 40A 20-1. Resolution 2021-11-126, which is a resolution implementing rules for emergency declarations for delivery of goods and services. Resolution 2021-11-127, and that is Governor's Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse fiscal year 2023, grant cycle July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Last resolution, 2021-11-128, and that is a resolution authorizing contract to LANDBERG Construction LLC for Penn Street Phase 3 roadway improvements. May I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2021-11-121 through 2021-11-128. Sure. LANDBERG Construction. One time. What we had. Brown, are you?
First reader.
We have a second? Second. Thank you, Councilwoman Scarpese. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion. Okay,
Ms. Smith can answer that question.
okay. Mr. Sean Smith?
Ma'am, good evening, Mayor.
Hi. Council President Mency had a question regarding the resolution authorizing the contract to Landberg for Penn Street.
That is Penn Street Phase 3, correct?
Yes. Yes.
I will try to answer the question. I believe, the previous engineer, Sickles and Associates, is handling that particular project. We were awarded Phase 4, which we will be managing at that. I'll try to answer the question.
Then this question should go back to Mr. Ryan. The question is the money. When they put in for this, I don't know how much we had, but it was more money. We were supposed to find money.
Oh, that is, yes,
Yeah.
okay. I think we'll answer. Okay. So, to get the way the bid came in to what we would consider to be complete Penn Street, it was 100 linear feet. Well, Mr. Rambo's suggestion, I went out to Penn Street to see what does 100 linear feet look like on Penn Street, and basically you just see the paving would just stop abruptly 9/10 on the street, so you just have a weird section that was unpaved. So they said the only way we could, so we needed $30,000 additional. On the advice of council, I polled the governing body to see if, so we had a template that all council got. On Ms. Scarpase's suggestion, there was money to be set aside from the first round of American Recovery money for what was labeled as infrastructure, $25,000. After all the other suggested expenditures, there's also $17,000 left in for like miscellaneous. So we pulled the $25,000 from infrastructure and and $5,000 from miscellaneous to add the $30,000 to get that extra 100 linear feet on Penn Street so the paving is completing the entire street. So when the bill is paid, most of it's coming from DOT money, then a small portion is going to come from the grant money.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
And the total was 30,000
Yes,
that we had to put in.
to contribute, yes.
And did we ever figure out that that is total for Penn Street and that completes the job?
So what happens is it depends on what you define as a street, because when two streets intersect, for $60,000 more, you'd be able to get through the cross street. I forget which one it is, through the cross street to the other side of the street. But it'll be more difficult for us to raise that money in the financial situation we're in right now.
But this is phase 3. Mr. Smith is going phase 4. So that would be different. That's different money there because they didn't even put that in.
Yes, correct. But I'm just speaking on this particular project. Basically, the engineer said, Sims Associates said we have 3 options. Be 100 feet short, go 100 feet more, or go, I don't know how many more feet, go even more feet and get a little even more done. The even more done is really extra. So we met them in the middle, contributed 30,000 to finish this part of section 3, phase 3. Yes.
Okay,
Do you
so
remember
to
which-
answer your question, phase 4 ain't, we're not doing phase 4. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember which end of Penn Street? Was it Lanning Avenue or Main Street?
It's landing at.
Lanning Avenue.
Wait a minute. Landing or Penn?
No. You're saying Penn, no, you're saying Penn
Which
has,
end was not done?
right.
It was Lanning end, Lanning Avenue end.
What do you mean the landing?
So
That's Pittman Street, we're talking about Penn.
Penn Street.
Penn goes this way from Main to Lanning.
Right.
So I asked which end was the 100.
Landing.
No,
No, I mean, it's not Main to Landing.
let me just pull out on the map.
So that's where the street goes.
No, you got it. Main Street, you got Harmony Street, you got Pittman Street, you got Poplar Street, you got Lion Street. Landing is
Line.
I'm sorry, yeah,
You're right, line.
yeah, so, yeah, so it's only going to, is it going to Poplar Street?
It's going, it's on Penn Street, Pittman, Poplar, Line area.
Yeah, but phase 3 is not gonna do the whole thing. There's a phase 4.
Phase 3 into West Pittman Street.
Okay, I'll pull up the, let me just pull up this, can you just come back to me?
I just wanna make sure, I don't understand all the, what they mean by shortage and how they want to do it. When they finish the street, I wanna make sure it's up to the curve like it should be. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know what they mean by the being short somewhere.
Well, you're talking about width versus length.
So they're talking about the length of
The
it,
length of,
yeah.
width is the
So
whole
why
thing.
would they think they wanna just stop somewhere and we not finish it?
Well, it's not that, it's just that you're not, all of Penn Street from Main to Line isn't being done. That's, but it's most of the street, but not the entire street, because the funding didn't cover the entire length of the entire street.
That's on phase 3.
That's why I said, I'm just gonna put up the specs and I'll tell you what it is.
Okay. All right. Okay, so in other words, we do have the money that the extra money that they requested.
Yes.
Okay.
So am I clear, we're going from Denny to Pittman Street?
We're not clear, and I'm gonna let you know in a minute. Denny,
Yeah, Denny is down there.
From Denny to Pittman Street is where on Penn is what's going to cover.
oh yeah, there's Denny. Yeah, let me just,
Phase 4 will pick up from Pittman Street to Line Street.
Okay.
It's in the resolution where they're gonna begin again.
you have it. I'll flip it.
It says, it starts just before the intersection of Denny Avenue and continues north approximately 450 linear feet towards West Pittman Street. All right. May we have a motion to adopt resolution 2000. Thank you. Madam Clerk, call roll call, please.
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Councilman Giordano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Martin,
Yes.
Council President Mency,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Before we move on to the next item, which is the first reading and introduction of ordinances, I want to call our engineer, Sean Smith. He has a presentation to give us on cannabis.
Once again. Thank you. I just want to start off with my discussion. We got a few awards. In 2019, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission accepted and recommended approval of 14 medical cannabis business applications. The applications were provided for cultivation. They were Bloomberg Medical, PA, Seor, New Jersey, Garden State Relief, GCSS, Green Medicine, Hillview Medical, the NAR Group, New Jersey, Nectar Ventures, Noble Valleys, and ZY Lab. And other applicants were approved for a vertical integration and operations list. Etane Greenhouse Wellness and Whole Food Medicine. Again, that was for medical marijuana use and recreational. Now, the recreational portion of this, New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Enforcement Assistance and Marketplace Modernization. Acronym is CREAM, and that's what PENNS. Now, that act allows, and that's what we're discussing tonight, that act allows the legal sale and use of cannabis and cannabis products for residents 21 years or older. Now, this newly adopted established recreational cannabis industry in the state of New Jersey. When licensed, dispensaries are open, will be open, excuse me, for all adults over the age of 21, and they will be able to purchase and possess up to 1 ounce of cannabis. Now, the license type based on the CREAM Act, again, that's CREAMM, the acronym for the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Enforcement Assistance and Marketplace Modernization, that's a mouthful. They established 6 classes of license for recreational use, licensed business, and these applicants, excuse me, I'm sorry, the applicants can also obtain a temporary conditional license, which will also allow them to lawfully act as a cannabis cultivator. So those classes of license are Class 1 cannabis cultivator. That's to grow.
You're breaking up really bad.
Okay, let me see. Let me get a little bit closer. So Class 1 cannabis cultivator, that's to grow recreational use cannabis. Class 2 is cannabis manufacturer to produce recreational use cannabis. Class 3 would be a store, sell, or otherwise transfer recreational use cannabis items between cannabis cultivators, wholesalers, and retailers. That's manufacturing, again, Class 2. Excuse me, my apologies. I missed Class 2 is actually to produce recreational use cannabis. And Class 3 is the wholesaler, which is to store, sell, and otherwise transfer recreational use cannabis items between cannabis cultivators, wholesalers, and retailers. The Class 4 license is for distributors, be for the transportation of cannabis items in bulk between cultivators, manufacturers, or retailers within the state of New Jersey. The Class 5 license is for retailers to be able to purchase recreational use cannabis from licensed cultivators, manufacturers, or wholesalers, and sell those items to consumers in a retail store. That's Class 5. Class 6 cannabis license is for delivery, and that's for the transportation to consumers who have purchased recreational cannabis and related supplies from a retailer to that particular customer. And then finally, I mentioned earlier, there is a conditional license, and that's begin building out operations for the cultivation, manufacturing, dispensing, wholesaling, distribution, or delivery of recreational use cannabis while working towards meeting the requirements for the cannabis cultivators, manufacturers, dispensary, wholesalers, distributors, and delivery license. That is just a temporary, while again, they're working on and working towards meeting the requirements in the statutes. Now I put together some information based on the sales, both in California, specifically San Francisco, and again in Colorado. So the average wholesale cost per pound within those two areas are somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,721 per pound. A public cannabis company report yields per square foot, and this is square foot of actual space, somewhere in the neighborhood of between 125 grams to 350 grams, with an average being closer to more like 150 grams. So for instance, so if you take a typical facility, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 150,000 square feet to 175,000 feet of space, the average yield for that particular facility would be approximately 49,500 pounds per year. So using these two states' pricing for wholesale flour, the yield of those facilities would normally generate somewhere in the neighborhood of $85.2 million of annual sales, with a 2% municipal tax on those sales is somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.7 million. Now, one of the issues that we have in looking at Penns Grove is the actual what the state is considering a shovel-ready project. There's obviously no time to build a particular facility to make the applications in a timely fashion, which would put a serious harm on a particular grower or manufacturer that's looking to submit for their particular license. They have to have site control. If they have site control, then they must have a shovel project ready within 1 year. And that obviously cannot happen. So we started taking a look at facilities throughout the borough of Penns Grove. We thought we found a good location. And I ran those numbers based on that particular location. And that location was a property on Virginia Avenue, and it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 25,000 square feet. So we ran the projections and then found out after we contacted that particular retail broker, as to whether or not that facility was available. We were told that it just went on a contract just about a month or two ago, and they feel confident that the sale is going to go through. So we've looked at a few other facilities, and at this point, we haven't found any facility conducive for this. And we did find one was in a residential neighborhood, and the price that they were asking for this particular storage facility was way out of line with comps of that similar size facility. But still, we ran the numbers for you. So a class 1 cannabis cultivator in a 25,000 square foot building would yield approximately 8,250. That's 8,250 pounds per year at a rate of $1,721 per pound. That particular 25,000 square foot facility would generate $14.2 million a year annually for a tax of 2% to the borough of Penns Grove. So that would be approximately $284,000 a year for a class 1. A class 2 of manufacturing, a facility of that size, we would probably etch out 5,000 square feet of that particular building to do the manufacturing, whether it's gummies or whatever the case may be, rolled cannabis products and so on. Based on 5,000 square foot out of the 25, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million a year. And that would generate a tax revenue to the borough at $800,000 a year at 2%. Class 3 cannabis wholesaler is estimated that would generate $8 million a year, and that's only taxed at 1%, not 2, but 1% for $80,000 taxes to the borough. The class 4 cannabis distribution, that again is somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 million at 2% to the borough tax. That's $164,000 a year annually. Class 5 cannabis retailer, they're somewhere in the neighborhood of $5.8 million on that size type facilities. No, excuse me, I'm sorry. That number, the 5.8 million, is not based on the facility, but based on the averages of retail stores that are within California and San Francisco. Obviously, Penns Grove is not as large, but we kind of extrapolated the number and came out with somewhere in the neighborhood of 5.8 million. And again, that's at 2% to the borough of Penns Grove at $116,000 annually. And then lastly, the cannabis delivery service. Again, that's just based on truck volume We kind of, once again, extrapolated those numbers out because of the size of the borough of Penns Grove. We're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of an estimated $834,000. Excuse me, $834,000, and taxes at the 2% will be $16,000 annually. So, I mean, if you total all those estimates up, we're looking at somewhere at about $1.4 million annually paid to the borough of Penns Grove. With the understanding that these figures are strictly based on averages and then current industry prices and output. So some frequently asked questions that we came across.
Mr. Smith, before you go into the FAQ, so all of these classes together, you're saying we would generate 1.4 million a year?
No, ma'am, I believe the figure was 1.4 million. Yes, you are correct.
I have a question. Let's
Sure.
stop at this point. This ordinance does not
And
allow.
that's if the borough was to allow.
Mr. Smith, Councilwoman
Yes,
Scarpese
ma'am.
has a question.
This ordinance does not allow for that in R1 or R2 areas or R3. The ordinance that we have in front of us.
It's my understanding that is correct. Zoning and locations, no residential areas, nothing at the marina, but it would be allowing commercial and industrial areas. That's my understanding.
Right.
So the facility that you looked at would not be included in this ordinance, am I correct?
Well, the first would have been allowed on Virginia Avenue.
Or Virginia?
Right, I have on Virginia Avenue or near Main Street. The facility we found on Virginia Avenue was a perfect location. Not only did they have the size requirements that we were looking for, or not we, but they were looking for, but it also had power. There was a substation behind the building, so they were able to pull the power for all their mechanical systems, their filtration systems, and so on. The other one, the old, I believe it was an old storage facility. One was in a residential area, so that raised the flag, obviously. And then the second part of the discussion was the cost of the property, and they were once again way overvaluing that property. But that would have suited as far as footage is concerned.
Mr. Smith, which property did you just say?
There was I don't have that note in front of me, but I know it was a old storage facility for sale.
Oh, that's the facility you were saying was in a residential area.
Correct.
Closet,
Maybe he's talking about the closet.
yeah, that's a residential area. That wouldn't, this ordinance wouldn't.
That's in a commercial area.
Well, he's saying it's in the middle of residential. This ordinance doesn't allow that.
So let me just, the purpose of Mr. Smith sharing this information with us is to let us know what the potential revenue could possibly be to the borough should we choose to allow certain classes, depending on which ones would be fitting for us. You know, obviously, we really don't have the facility for a cultivation because of that one property on Virginia Avenue, which was sold. So we have to look at what other options we may have in accordance to that. This is the potential revenue that it could bring into the borough. So.
Are there any other properties that are potential?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Are there any other properties that we were able to locate?
Mayor, at this time, we're still looking, but it's from a rooftop assessment. No, I don't believe so. I don't believe we're going to find anything quite as large as we would need it to move that process forward for manufacturing.
Yes.
Well, just so that we're clear, you're talking about for cultivation, manufacturing, and wholesaling, not for distributing retailing, correct? When you say that you haven't identified the additional property. Just trying to, you were looking at the retailing properties or the delivery property.
He's looking for the business.
Mr. Smith? You're on mute.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Tarver was asking you a question. I'm not sure if you were able to hear him.
No, I was not. Could you repeat that? Let me
Sure,
turn
sure.
up my speaker.
My question was this: you mentioned you were asked whether or not you were looking at certain properties and what you had identified. I assume that when you were talking about the properties that you were looking at from an aerial view, you were talking about the larger properties, not the retailer or delivery properties, or the smaller properties or actual retail sales.
That is correct. For the purposes of our study, we looked at more for the manufacturing and cultivation, but not for the retail. I hope that answers your.
It does.
Just as a comment, class 5 seems reasonable for Penn's grade. The others, I just don't understand where we could put that, other than that one place that now is under contract.
How large of a facility would a distribution place need or delivery?
For a distribution, Mayor, pursuant to your comment, that would really have to vary. And again, that particular distributor is going to get, excuse me, their product from a cultivator and or manufacturer. So depending on the supply would dictate the size of the facility. So, you know, we could say 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet, but obviously it would need loading docks and so forth. And then they would also have to be able to equip the building with scrubbing machines, air filtration machines, to keep the smells down. Have to go through that whole process. So really identifying that building would be difficult for me at this time to say.
When you say,
I'm sorry, Mr. Carver. Carver.
I just want to be clear. Distribution facilities vary in size depending on what you intend your distribution outfit to be. So it could be 5,000, it could be 2,500, or it could be 10,000 or more than that.
Correct.
But are you saying that you wouldn't get distribution unless you had one for class 1 through 3, they're all tied together in one facility?
To answer your question, Councilwoman, normally it is, but that's not to say that the class 4 cannot stand on its own. They would have to obviously have some sort of agreement with 1, 2, or 3 to hold and distribute their products from whatever location they have.
And if I may, I can try to answer this. The facilities in Colorado do have standalone facilities for distribution, retail, delivery, and they treat it just like you would treat a food retailer and distribution outfit where you can get it from somewhere else and bring it over into there. Yeah,
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, so we would still need to identify locations for class 4, 5, and 6. Because we don't have the room for class 1, 2, and 3. That's how I'm getting it.
Well, it's Mayor, it's not that you don't necessarily have room. The real question is, once these licenses are let out by the state, there's a very few licenses to be obtained, and it's my understanding that the folks that have medical marijuana license are the first ones in line for recreational. Now, having said that, there's a handful of licenses available, so we as the borough want to partner with a reputable firm that has a track record that has done this in multiple states. So we could be assured that they would be able to receive one of the few licenses that are going to be allowed by the state of New Jersey. So, we've identified a few of those partners potentially for the borough of Penns Grove, and that building on Virginia Avenue was very attractive for this one particular developer. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Hopefully the sale may drop off and we can go down that road, but the timing is the problem. We have to have a building or a shovel-ready project approved, one by the borough, sanctioned by the borough, but unfortunately that's not going to happen in a timely manner for one of those select few manufacturers or cultivators to put in an application. So they'll look for a more conducive site that would support their application and bolster its approval with the state of New Jersey. So we may just be regulated to 4, 5, and 6 just because of those parameters that I just spoke about.
But that's also not to say that class 1, 2, and 3, as the business develops as it has in other states, and developers find it to be attractive because of the location of the particular town or city or whatever, to actually construct facilities, because that's been done as well.
Absolutely, but for this particular round, and again, I'm not trying to kick that can down the road because who knows what the CRC is going to do in the future. But for the handful of licenses that are available now, these particular developers need to have in place site control at a bare minimum while to submit their application.
How much time do we have?
Your guess, Mayor, is as good as ours. I mean, they've been saying one thing and then coming out the day it's supposed to be done and changing the date. So we're still waiting. I don't think it's going to be a year. We're thinking more, and Mr. Carver, you may know this better than I, probably within this next 60 to 180 days, they would start accepting applications.
Yeah, I think that's a very good guess.
Yes.
That one building on Virginia Avenue that you're talking about, isn't that privately owned?
Yes, it is, sir. It is privately owned and under contract.
And have you looked at any of the properties, vacant properties on Virginia Avenue?
Again, something that size, but we will definitely take another look, Councilman. We've done our rooftop assessments to try to get the dimensions of the properties. We have not found any that we think may fit, but now it's obviously time for boots on the ground because time is critical. Within the next a day or so, my team will be down there, literally driving and walking Virginia Avenue to see what we can find. Maybe we can get away with a building. I think we found one maybe about 12,000 square feet or so, and it looked to appear to be a buildable lot behind there. So maybe it's an addition to an existing structure to get up to that 25,000 square feet. I know the developer we've been talking to, the minimum requirement for him is 25,000 square feet. So, we will start conducting that walk down survey again, either late afternoon or Friday.
Is that the one near the school?
Yes, ma'am. I believe so.
Harbor.
And we also need a supervisor, so.
Yeah. Can we look at 4, 5, and 6?
Mayor, I would ask Mr. Sean Brown if mayor and/or any council members have suggestions of areas that we should be looking at, would he compile a list for us? And then this way we'll be able to, okay, thank you, Mr. Brown.
There was a question by Councilwoman Scarpese.
Yes.
And she asked whether or not you could break out 4, 5, and 6. You can always, in terms of what you want to do in the ordinance, you can do that. The problem with that is, and it's been my experience in other places, is that this ordinance is a predicate ordinance. It's laying the groundwork for what you might want to be able to do. So you don't have to have 1, 2, and 3 just because it's in here. You don't have to actually locate those facilities or find those facilities. But should it arise, for example, should that deal, because it's under contract, as Councilman Giordano was pointing out, should that fall through, you would have the ability in your ordinance to move forward with. It doesn't hurt to have it in there. Doesn't mean you have to use it, but it's available. As my drill sergeant used to say, better to have it not need it than to need it and not have it. That's kind of what it would be.
Can we limit this just to Virginia Avenue? Because I wouldn't like to see this down by the riverfront either. That property is very valuable.
Yes, they get excluded the riverfront.
So we could say have it on Main Street and just exclude the riverfront.
Probably limit it to Virginia Avenue because there's no residential there. There's no possibility for shops and stores and things like that, other than maybe strip mall. So the riverfront is more of an entertainment area. I don't know that we would want manufacturing, growing, and everything there.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
the current proposal before council allows for the categories 1 through 6. And if you look at the zoning map in the commercial office service district, which is
Sean, you talking about this?
no, the actual zoning,
zoning map.
yes. So the marina district is completely excluded from this.
Okay.
And one and M2 yes on the ordinance.
Say again.
M1 and M2 have yes on the ordinance. On the chart. It's like the next to last page.
No, I'm looking at it. That's not right.
Well, you can always amend that. I think that's what she's asking is to amend that to make sure that.
That was the recommendation anyway.
What's that?
That was what you just said.
Oh, okay.
So to answer your question, yes, you can. I would just say to keep those away from those riverfront.
That's considered a friendly one.
Mr. Smith, I apologize for interrupting you in the middle of your presentation. You were gonna go into the FAQs. And before you, unless anyone else has any questions. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Smith. You have the floor.
All right, thank you. Just want to point out a couple few commonly asked questions regarding the establishment of the operation of the cannabis business. Now, one is, council and mayor should consider determine which classes, obviously, we've been having that conversation, that you're going to allow within your jurisdiction, along with how many of these classes can also be considered. Regulate locations, obviously, we just spoke about that. So, I think we've touched base on just a few of these many things, but regulate location, hours of operation, and exempt times of operations for the deliveries, license delivery service. Your local regulations may include requirements for cannabis business and the premises and be a certain distance from closest churches, synagogues, temples, schools, playgrounds, parks, etc. Some daycares, kind of those are some of the things we want to consider. Obviously, the levy of the local 2% tax for all. Additional local approved processes through local fees, enact civil penalties for violations within a municipality, and also work with whoever developer that's coming in to have a community engagement piece. And that can consist of, things that the Borough of Penn Grove needs, upgrades to the parks, senior community centers. I'm sorry?
Center, that could be one of our requirements for whomever
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Want a community center.
Absolutely, in conversations with several developers, and I think they understand that when they're coming into these communities, that the community needs things, not necessarily to get on board, because I'm not here to preach about the ills or whatever as far as Canada is concerned, but when you come in a community and you want to be a good community citizen, a community partner, those are things that you bring. There may be a local football league or a basketball league or soccer league, those type of things that they should be sponsoring. And it's not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not something out of the ordinary to ask, because they're coming to the table with this. We don't have to mention it anymore because they understand. Okay, let's see here. And we actually went through whether the transfer tax is established, and we did talk about that. For cultivation, it's 2%, manufacturing 2%, wholesale 1%, and cannabis retailer 2%. And Mayor, I'm just looking over my notes here, and it appears that we have council members have brought up except the impact zone. Now the CRA is working to comply a list of impact zones as defined by the statutes. So that information is not available at this particular time as to what they're considering an impact zone. It's based on census tracts, or whatever the case may be, but I just wanted to bring that out. There is going to be sometime in the very near future a impact zone designation. Now, I know there's been conversations with just about everyone in reference to how banking is handled. Now, I came across an article from the American Bankers Association, and they are really pushing. They're taking no position as to the moral issues as raised by legalizing marijuana. But a growing number of states, as we all know, are allowing sales and use for practical uses. And the American Banking Association, has gone to Congress on several occasions to petition the regulatory agencies to provide a greater clarity to banking operations in the state where marijuana is legalized. Now, associated with this was a Reuters article that on April 19th of this year, 2021, the U.S. House of Representatives passed legislation that would allow banks to provide services for cannabis companies in states where it's legal, and steps toward removing the analysis and those particular barriers that are being set forth. Now, lawmakers voted 321 to 101 to approve the bill and send it to Senate. Unfortunately, Senate has been a little busy lately, and I don't think this has come up, but it's definitely something that they're willing to look into. And there was a quote here from the Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer. In early April, he was interviewed by Politico and said that he would try to advance this legislation to legalize marijuana and use for adults, and asked that the Safe Banking Act that would be, he would like to see such a bill move forward as part of a more comprehensive measure.
So how does that stand there?
So yes, it's passed the, you broke up there, I'm sorry. Come on, I'm unsure who that was.
How do municipalities in the state get paid now?
Well, I'm not sure if you know this, Councilwoman, but it is strictly a cash business at this particular time. Strictly a cash business. Now, how they're going to handle this, because the states obviously are allowing this, but it is still illegal for the federal government. So handling it, I mean, it's a slippery slope. You've got workers that are there. The majority of them are in their 20s and 30s. They get a paycheck. They deposit that paycheck in the bank, and technically that's bank fraud because the federal government does not allow it. So I think the powers that be understand this, and they're going to have to deal with it in some form or fashion. But unfortunately, the Senate has not taken this up for discussion at this particular time.
Can I just weigh in on that, Sean, if I may?
Please.
In terms of the way that it works financially, the state is requiring each of these businesses to show liquidity in order to even get up and running and get into a municipality. When I say liquidity, they have to show a certain amount of cash reserves because, as he says, this is a cash business. So they already have to establish that they have a certain amount of financial liquidity. Secondarily, because the state has put into effect the framework for cannabis and has allowed this to happen, the state has in effect indemnified the individuals who engage in this practice from any type of state state sanction. And so it's not really a situation where we would be worried about the federal government coming in or anyone saying that we're operating illegally when we as a state enterprise and a functional state body have the ability to do so under state laws. In the other areas who do deal with this, as Mr. Sean Smith pointed out, he's 100% correct, it's a cash business. So much of the transaction is done through bank checks, but not bank checks, cashier's checks, and those types of deposits. There are other institutions that are now being established and are being set up in order to be able to handle these types of transactions. They're not federally insured, of course, and obviously there's somewhat of a risk dealing with the other institutions. But because it is a cash business and because we do have a level of security, because this is a state statute that allows us to do this, we're somewhat protected by that.
So it's kind of reminding me of like when you go to a store and you go to use your debit card and they say they don't accept credit cards and debit cards, they strictly accept cash. So we just pay in cash. So it's kind of the same.
So they're gonna pay us in cash or cashier's check.
It's not difficulty, but the one thing about it is it requires a higher scrutiny on the part of the retailers, deliverers, manufacturers, et cetera. They are required to keep much more strict records of their transactions and what they bring in. And part of a successful enterprise means that you also have to have regular inspections of records as well. And that's what they've done in other places such as Colorado.
So I have a question. So if this isn't recognized on a federal level yet, then they're exempt from federal tax?
Probably not.
Well, quite frankly, there's been no framework that establishes these businesses paying federal tax. That's part of what the state is going to have to work out in its final details. But again, fortunately, that's not something that we as the municipality have to bear. That's part of the risk that I guess they have to take in operating. Because they're going to have to put a lot of money down in order to get these licenses with the state, and so they're the ones that are bearing those risks.
Mr. Smith, what is the Borough of Lawnside doing? So I know you work for the Borough of Lawnside as well.
Well, we're up against I think we may have just opted in. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there with you tonight because of election day. You had your meeting on the same night Borough of Lawnside has theirs. But we are working with a particular group out of California, probably one of the, not probably, the largest grower and manufacturer within the Borough of Lawnside. They are taking a 150,000 square foot building directly within our redevelopment area. I should start off there. We have an Oak Avenue redevelopment area, which consists, we just completed 144 market rate residential units. Along with that, there are several flex spaces that we've actually, one is completed. The Ream Corporation does air conditioning and heating. That's going to be their new headquarters, Northeast headquarters. And another flex building, there's a company going in, and that's about 65,000 square feet. There's another building that's being under construction as we speak, closer to 200,000 square feet. It's going to be Redzella, which is the largest aftermarket motorcycle brand. And they're also going, that's going to be the Northeast headquarters. I failed not to say there's another 150,000, hopefully to be 200,000 square foot building that particular cannabis manufacturer is going to go. They're going to do everything but retail. Mayor Warlow wanted no retail within the borough. She felt we were, she just said didn't want retail for all those reasons, but we're going to do the other 5 classes out of the borough on side.
What is, if I can ask that question, what's their potential revenue per year?
Quite a bit. Hang on one second. Let me just.
Moving along, son.
Right.
The Borough of Lawnside is somewhere between $8 and $10 million a year.
Wow.
I mean, and that's because they had, we were already developing, developing these flex spaces. So as far as the developer is concerned, which is a Vineland Construction Company out of Vineland, they were building the building anyway, and they were approached. They approached the borough. We had opted out, just as the Borough of Pennsgrove. But taking a look at the revenues that can be generated, I mean, our budget is probably not too far south of yours. So we're tripling our budget almost overnight. And also that community involvement piece, we've had the developers setting aside a separate pot of funds just to handle those community. And actually, they suggested we put this in writing. I said, you know what, I'm no solicitor and I don't play one on TV, but I think our solicitor would appreciate that. So yeah, there's a separate pot of money just to do those social justice issues that may come up, things that are important to you, the mayor, to your other council members there, things that are important for the community. That's just a separate pot of money to do those, I like to call them feel-good projects. And that's what we're set up to. We're potentially setting ourselves up to do somewhere between $8 and $10 million. And the building will be finished probably in another 3 to 4 months.
Mr. Smith, I have a question for you as far as, well, let me put it this way. First of all, we're not Lawnside, and we certainly don't have the type of buildings that they have. But you mentioned that they did not want anything to do with retail. Now, there had to be a reason for that. I just have one thought, and that is, we're looking at medicinal purposes for cannabis and recreational purposes. Were there concerns that recreational purposes would be a hazard as far as the crime rate going up? And that was one of the deterrents that they didn't want to have retail? I mean, naturally, don't get me wrong. I know us in here, we would love to get additional revenue. The citizens would like to see their taxes go down. All that sounds great, and I'm all for that. but I don't want to put the citizens at risk at the same time by looking at just the dollars and cents. So can you tell me more about the retail and why alongside didn't go for that?
Valid point. I don't want to speak for Mayor Warlow, but I can kind of give an overview of what she was thinking of the time. We are extremely close to Camden, Philadelphia, and the literal words out of her mouth was, "I don't want folks hopping on a bus coming into our facility to buy retail marijuana." Period. And that was the end of that particular discussion. Whether or not she thought it was bad for the community as far as crime and so on was concerned, that was never mentioned in her conversation. As you all may or may not know, Lawnside is a historical Black community, and I think she just didn't want that stigma of having retail within the historic borough of Lawnside. And that was really the discussion. After she said no retail, we pulled it off the ordinance and kept moving towards the shovel-ready project that was already being built for no home. And just so happened, this particular group out of California, I don't want to use the word fell in our lap, but they came a knocking. I know I didn't quite answer your question fully, but I honestly don't have a direct answer for you. You would have to touch base with Mayor Warlow. I want to have to speak for the mayor.
Can I just follow up with something on that?
Yeah.
As someone who has researched this myself or other municipalities and has put this into effect, there are no studies that demonstrate that those sales in those sales areas result in increased crime. So I just want to make clear that there's no empirical data that says that that's the case.
I also wanted to comment on that. It's whether we do retail or not, or whether we have a medical marijuana place or not. Once Governor Murphy makes marijuana recreational throughout the state, it's going to be weed in this town regardless, even more, or cannabis, whatever you choose to call it. So the crime rate, I can't see that being an issue of going up or whatever the case may be, because whether we sell it or they go to the next state or next town to get it, you will see it more openly of people smoking in town. Will that increase the crime rate? I don't think it will, no. But I just wanted to put that out there to not make you think just because we sell or retail marijuana at the store, if we have one, that it's going to increase any type of crime rate or anything like that. I feel as though it won't, but that's just my opinion.
Let me just add one other thing, just if I can. One of the good things about the municipality is you have the ability to fully regulate how retail is done. If you decide to do it, you can regulate where it's done. You can regulate the square footage of any building that it's going to be done in. You can regulate the hours to be whatever you want them to be. You can regulate the signage and the storefront of how it has to look. You can regulate that it has to be in a certain distance away from churches, schools, or whatever else. You have a tremendous amount of leeway to be able to regulate how that's done. And one of the very helpful things, I think, for people is the hours that you regulate. If you do have a question as to whether or not there is the possibility of problems, you can regulate the hours. So you do have a lot of leeway with that. But to pick up on what the councilman said, one of the issues that was brought up in Colorado was that municipalities who excluded the retail could not stop, and neither can you. You can't stop your neighbors from delivering to Pennsville. So they can come in and do regular deliveries, drop them off at houses, drop them off at businesses, drop them off wherever, while you're not getting any of the revenue, but the other municipality that's bringing the stuff in is getting it.
That's a very good point, Solicitor. I just want to add a couple more things. I had visited a manufacturing facility up in North Jersey. It was an old, well, anyway, that doesn't make a difference. But I really wanted to drive home the point on security. From the time we entered the grounds, we were met by 2 armed individuals. Identification was required, making copies. But what really impressed me was the level of security within the facility itself. There were cameras just about every turn. I also understood that the cameras are not only monitored by the security within the facility, but those cameras are also monitored by the state, the CRC. The manager of the facility told me one day somebody had a rack of bags of marijuana and it was blocking the view of the camera. The state regulator actually called and said, would you move camera X and Y, Z, or move the thing that was blocking that particular camera? This came directly from Trenton to North Jersey. And then also, lastly, those cameras were also monitored by the local police department. So they had a direct feed into the facilities as well. So that's something to take into consideration as you're looking at security. Penns Grove Police Department can have their eyes at the front door, back door, at the cash register, or wherever in a particular facility based on distribution or retail or manufacturing. The state takes that seriously, and I would imagine and know that the Borough of Penns Grove Police Force would do the same. So there could be a direct feed into the police department to somebody to monitor that 24/7, as they would say.
And in addition to that, there's a direct feed anyway being monitored by the state.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am. That is correct. It is directly being monitored by the state 24/7.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, when we went to Maplewood, that company that we went to, they said the police department had a direct feed, correct?
They did
Yes,
say
sir.
that. Councilwoman Scarpese.
I wanted more of an explanation of the impact saying, is that based on the income level of the residents? When we had that presentation, it was, I think, income level, incarceration for drug use, and maybe a few other items.
I am not 100% sure about that. I would imagine, if I had to make an educated guess that you were correct in your explanation, it would have to do with a particular census tract, which would take into consideration income within that particular census tract. But the other items that you had mentioned as far as drug use and those type of things, I honestly don't know. The only information I can gather about that impact, it's something that's going to happen, but there's no outline or draft of a particular document I can put my hands on. But I can only speculate, But I would imagine we would have to do something with a particular census tract, medium income of sorts.
Mr. Brown, can I defer to you regarding the impact?
Yes, I'm just gonna actually read this. Impact zones is a defined term in CREAM. It means any census tract that ranks in the top 33% of census tracts in the state of marijuana-related arrests, and that ranks in the bottom 33% of census tracts in the state for median household income. So Penns Grove is an impact zone. What that means is that if you are applying for an application, imagine 30 applications, 30 licenses given and 50 applications, right? So 20 aren't going to get it. The 30 that are most likely to get it are the 30 that are in impact zones. So the reason why Penns Grove is an attractive place to the industry is because we are an impact zone. That strengthens their application. And then the state's purpose in doing this is saying, since Penns Grove has been hit hard by the impact of the drug war in terms of arrest, and has been hit hard by poverty, a way to give back is now we have an opportunity to get this tax revenue, and we have an opportunity to correct the fact that we have people that live in our community who have been arrested for something that's not legalized.
It's also how they use the cigarette and the alcohol business. That's, we put it in low income, high crime areas, and that's where they make the most money. When I heard that, that's the first thing I thought of. That's what you see the liquor stores. That's when you see cigarettes being advertised when they could be advertised.
Well, the intent is different. In this case, the intent of an impact zone is to correct generations of arresting people for petty for petty marijuana possession, and to make sure that communities like this have an economic opportunity to have an industry that's going to bring back money to the municipality. The fact, several people have made this point. First, to be clear, technically since January 1st, 2020, recreational cannabis has been, at least on a constitutional level, and then it was codified, and then it was later codified by Cream. So not me, I would never do this, but an individual could go outside right now and stand on private property and roll up and smoke, and would be right within his or her legal right to do so.
My last question, okay, is the price of the product in the distribution or in the retail versus the price on the street. Feeling is the price on the street will be much, because they're not paying the tax, they're not paying the overhead for having a store and things like that, which I think that probably will impact on the amount of money that we can collect too.
Let me share something with everyone that I'm not sure if I got a chance to share with you, but when we went to North Jersey to that dispensary a couple months ago, noticed what I expected was a mixture of people from different backgrounds coming there. But surprisingly, what I noticed was it was like Mercedes pulling up.
That's what I'm thinking.
People with Prada bags going in, there were like people that were professionals. I didn't see anybody that just, like, I felt like I was underdressed going in there.
Right, and I think you're still gonna have street traffic because of the price.
You will, but what I will say is most of those people, before it was legal, if they were using it for whatever reasons, whether it was medicinal or recreational or whatever, they had to go buy it from someone on the street.
Right.
And when you buy from someone on the street, you don't know what's in that stuff.
Exactly.
You don't know. So I think providing a place where at least it's not laced with something provides a benefit to residents who need it for medicinal purposes. I know people who have MS that can't live without it.
Yeah, I'm sure. But is there any numbers on that? On a street value versus?
Well, you can look at how much an eight costs on the street
Won't
versus.
be
I wouldn't know.
to comment. I ain't gonna say I know the answer to your question, councilman or councilwoman. I'm not gonna say I know the answer to your question, but I feel as though it probably be around the same amount. Put it like that. It will be a little bit higher in stores, yes, because of the taxes and things. But the reason why I feel people will still come to the store rather than go to the street pharmacist is just because they have a better choice of cannabis that they want to use.
Exactly. You got a quality.
They have a better quality, and it's just more variety of what they want to do, rather than, like the mayor said, you're going to somebody on the street, they can say they have this, and you don't know exactly what you're putting inside your body. If you go to the dispensary, they got any type of facts on what this strand is, what it's going to do to your body, the pros and cons of smoking this, what it's used for. It could be to help you to eat. It could be to help you sleep. It could be for migraines, but they're going to give a list of all that stuff in the dispensary, like they did in the one in Maple Shade when we went. They gave you certain marijuanas that told you exactly what it would do to you and the effects that it would be on your body. Yeah, I'm sure it will be a little bit higher. It might not be. It all really depends on who you might be dealing with out in the streets, or what the prices is in the store. I'm going to be completely honest. Everybody has different prices for things, just like they going to in the actual market. If you go to Colorado right now, everybody doesn't have the same prices in every store. Some are higher than others. It's going to be the same way in the streets, but I do feel as though it will take away more people selling marijuana or cannabis in the streets, just because who they're going to have to compete with a store actually doing it, rather than competing with the next man down the street. It's going to be a lot harder to compete with somebody who has 30 different strands rather than compete with Boo Boo down the street that got 2 different strands.
The reason I asked the question, because I've been reading a lot, and there's all kinds of answers out there, depending on if people are for or against the products and everything. But the one article I read was that it was a 70% higher. I just wanted to know if there's anything out there that would confirm or.
Medical is not, at least in New Jersey, medical is not 70% higher than street. And I only know this because I'm a criminal law attorney, so I represent. But
Well, I just wanted to know, like, if there's anybody.
well, for example, you
knows the
can get
answer.
a quarter ounce of shake for about $36 at a medical dispensary. All right, and that same quarter ounce is, well, somebody help me out. On the street.
You can buy a bag of ketamine for $5. How about that?
Yeah, but K is, I'm sorry,
I'm
ketamine
just saying,
is,
this stuff out there is cheap on the streets. Stuff that you guys are talking about is safe. That's the difference.
Yes.
The people like have never, maybe haven't done marijuana since they were a teenager, might want to do it again, now they have arthritis, but it's safe. It's a difference.
All right, you guys, I know we can talk about this forever.
Mayor Thomas,
Yeah, absolutely.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Because this can't pass as it is because it has maybe a couple errors in it. So.
I could hear you, Councilwoman.
Oh, okay, I'm wondering, can you guys hear me?
yeah.
Yes.
now.
You can.
Now,
I have a question before we open that. My question is, us voting on this tonight, because we're talking about it a lot. Are we voting, we would vote, or I guess when we had the vote, we would vote basically if we want to, I know there's 6 licenses. The expectation is not for us to determine what license it is. Is that correct, or am I not?
This is
not
what,
correct?
this is what I would refer to as an enabling ordinance. So it enables you to be able to say that we will have these classes of cannabis sales in these particular locations. But then it's almost like this is kind of the skeleton, and the flesh comes with later ordinances. For example, where as I said before, the signage, the hours, the filtration systems, how they would work, and all that comes later on. But this is just saying that we as a municipality would be moving to allow and enable the sale of cannabis in these areas and ultimately at in these zones, or to restrict it from these zones. Now, I also heard that I think you had spoken about Marina. Right. So you can always amend this now to, I'll just simply say, to make the amendment to remove those areas and to pass it in that way if you wanted to.
So if I'm correct, we could pass it, and then could we then we could decide, if we decide, all right, we want it 1 through 6, I'm just saying. And then we decided we don't want 1, 2, and 3. Can we make that? No. So we have to determine Somebody just said no. So we would need to determine what it is then.
I think
I
it's
don't know.
somebody trying to talk in the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Is Mr. Redlick, I don't know, maybe he's trying to speak. But here's the way it works in terms of the ordinance. With your
Okay.
enabling ordinance, this is your first reading ordinance. So you are passing what you're passing on first reading. You have the opportunity to then, I think the councilwoman was talking about the possibility of a work session. You guys can have a work session in between or whatever, and make whatever decisions you make, as long as they're not material prior to the second reading. And if they are, then you would have to just go back to first reading again and move forward with it. So, you have options here.
Thank you.
So tonight, would it be to our advantage to vote on it by title only as the first reading to start moving? Or what would be our best course of action?
I can't tell you what will be best. I can tell you, though, you have a composition of council now. And if you want to move on this, you would need to move on it this year. So you have to have 2 meetings moving forward. Otherwise, if you get into next year, you can't split a year with the council. So, you need to move it. But again, it's a first reading. If you moved it tonight, you're not bound by that. Some things never even reach second reading, or they get amended in second reading such a way that it's not material and you can move forward, or it's material and you have to go back to first reading and do it again.
Would the zones, would they be material?
I think zones would be material. That's why if you want to make your amendment now, you can do it as amended.
I'd like to
Wipe
look at
out
the zoning map,
the waterfront.
because if Mr. Smith is going out this week, maybe he identifies something. And then we get his input, and then we can have maybe a work session next week.
So what are we doing with this ordinance tonight? Are we voting on it by title only in the paper amendments, having a work session after? What are we doing tonight?
Madam Mayor, I have a recommendation. First, we have to have a special meeting next week anyway for an unrelated topic. Second, the amendments that have been discussed are very simple. Ms. Williams is able to document that easily. The council member agrees to the amendments being made. But since we are meeting next week. And if you look, we're being watched by the industry. So whatever decision is made tonight after now will be, it will let the industry know how serious we are about bringing it to Penn's Borough one way or another.
So again, council, are we voting on it tonight?
I would like to make a motion to adopt by title only.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Carter. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Martin. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call?
Wait a minute, I
It's
got a
just a
question.
question.
I don't, go ahead, Carol.
Okay, so do we just say that if we vote on this, we can't change zoning?
No, you can always change your ordinance. You're never bound by the ordinance that you vote. Particularly, and the question is when you can change it. You can change it between now and first reading, depending on what and second reading, depending on what that change is. I understood that you wanted, even in this vote, to exempt the waterfront areas.
Yeah,
So what, if the motion that's being made is a motion to adopt with the amendment to exempt the areas,
NV1 and NV2.
yes, as they appear there from cannabis use. That's why I understood that. And Mr. Carter can confirm or not.
You asked me, you were breaking up a little. You asked me to confirm what now?
Okay, I understood that the motion that was being made for adopting the ordinance in first reading title was one with the amendment that you were all discussing, which is to restrict M1 and I guess it's M2, which are the waterfront areas.
Correct.
Was that what you intended?
Correct.
And was that what your seconded? Was seconded? Who was the second?
Councilwoman Martin, is that what you were seconding?
Yes, correct.
Madam, just be clear for the clerk, the last paragraph of whereas, we're deleting the words ND-1 zone comma, ND-2 zone comma. And on the chart, where it says M-1, that should be ND-1 and ND-2. And the Ps underneath should be changed from Ps to Ns.
Do you have a zoning map so we can look at it?
Sure, I'll give you one again. I'll look at it.
Actually.
Oh, we have to see what we're getting.
So we're looking at green and brown. Exclude the rest. This is very unclear. This is Maine and this is Virginia. This is Maine.
Virginia,
Yes,
and this is Maine,
yes,
right here,
yes,
and then so resident.
yes.
There's green and tan.
And just to remind everyone, no applicant, despite how you vote tonight, no applicant can be in Penns Road without a letter of support from the governing body. They can't even submit their application without support from the governing body.
So if we don't do this today, we can do it next week. In the special meeting, because it hasn't been advertised yet.
Actually, it's. Can you do it in the special meeting? Special meeting really has special defined purposes.
I'm curious what we learned, because this is the first time on the agenda. So what will we learn in the next 6 days that we don't know now?
But Mr. Smith is going to go out and walk the area, see what the locations are.
And this is what I was talking about the last meeting when I said we keep tabling stuff and pushing it off to do the same exact things over and over again. I don't understand. What is walking the town going to change anything with the vote that we have going on tonight? We know the zoning of the town already. So it's not like he's showing you guys anything that has changed. You know the zoning already of the town. So let's not act like this is something completely new. This is the third time that we talked about this same exact thing, and every time it gets to the same point. Let's do this, let's do that. Okay, we'll talk about it next meeting. When are we going to vote on it? Either we're going to vote yes or we're going to vote no, and just leave it at that and move on. It is now 8:05 and we've been on the same topic for 45 minutes and ain't halfway through the meeting yet. Nobody wants to be on here till 10:30 tonight. So can we please vote and move forward?
He's called the question. He's called the question. You're compelled to carry the vote.
The church said.
Madam Clerk, can you do roll call?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Councilman Giordano,
And this is with amendments.
I'm gonna abstain.
Just so you know, just so for everyone's purpose, if it's ever your intention to abstain, you cannot participate in the discussion of any of the subject. If it's for future purposes, so. Yeah,
So if he abstains now, the next meeting he can't.
no, just in the same meeting, if it's your intention to abstain on any topic for any reason, you can't participate in discussion. So for example, if I'm going to abstain on something, I can't participate in the early portions. And I'm not coming out on you, Councilman, but I'm saying this because I haven't said this to everyone before, and I should have said this to everyone, just so they know.
Okay, so before I abstain, if that's what I'm gonna do.
Well, you're saying that you didn't know, so that's fine. We're gonna move forward. He's already abstained.
I want,
Are you retracting your?
I'm retracting my abstain.
Oh.
I had a question.
Well, we're in the vote now, so you can't ask any questions.
One thing now.
Councilwoman Martin,
Yes.
Council President Mency,
Hey, because I don't know all these zones, regardless of what he said, you show me that paper, I don't know, I'm looking at on there.
Right, it's first reading, so.
Yeah, and we should have had the work session first, then we could have went over all this. I'm gonna say yes, since it's the first reading.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese.
No, Carol, I think we should have a work session.
All right, for affirms to May's motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.
Can we schedule the work session?
Yes. Okay. Next, ordinance. 2021-26, that's an ordinance of the Borough of Pennsboro amending chapter 410, regulating taxation within the Borough of Pennsboro. May I have a motion to adopt by title only? Thank you, Council President Mency. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Giordano. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Councilman Giordano,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Martin,
Yes.
Council President Mency,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the next ordinance, 2021-27. That's an ordinance amending chapter 141, section 3 regarding membership, terms and vacancies for the
Sorry about that.
the Economic and the Redevelopment Board. May I have a motion to adopt by title only? Thank you, Council President Mency. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Giordano. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call?
Question. Could you give us the definition of a board versus an authority versus a committee?
An authority is established by statute. A committee can be established within the council itself. Either a committee of select individuals or the council can be a committee of the whole to deal with a particular issue. A board is an entity without authority
That gives recommendations.
that gives recommendations. Yes.
Yes.
And just so that everyone knows why we did this, the original ordinance as it was drafted did not contain any term for the members. So we had to add the terms. So members have been actually put on the board. We will adjust their terms commensurate with the ordinance once it passes.
Okay, so we had Council President Mency made the motion. Councilman Giordano made the second. And then Madam Clerk, we're going to do roll call.
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Councilman Giordano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Martin,
I'm sorry, my screen was off. Yes.
Council President Mency,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to committee reports. First, we have Buildings and Grounds, Councilwoman Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. So Buildings and Grounds Committee met with BA Sean Brown and Engineer Sean Smith, and also with Erica Walker on 10/27/21. The Buildings and Grounds Committee met again on 10/28. So we had a meeting first, and then we had to meet again to talk over what's budgeted, what we had in the budget, and what we were going to go with or what we were not going to be able to upgrade in the bar. This is regarding the Barber Avenue Park. So the upgrades include the new playground, equipment and swings, to replace the grass under the swings with mulch, to replace the grass around the equipment with the rubber mulch, to paint the pavilion, paint and finish the tables, repair the paracourse, remove the railroad ties, replace 6 trash receptacles and install. Some of the landscaping has been done already. And then the trees were removed, and to extend the basketball court to make the park ADA friendly. The grant allows for park upgrades and demolition. So we were approved by the state for $291,000 for those repairs. Also, the grant allows for demolition. We have 6 properties, and the cost for that is $102,000. So that's under that grant we got for the park and the demolition. So also 1 State Street, which is the Borough Hall, is in need of a new roof. So we've been discussing that. The committee decided on a contractor. Actually, we had 3 bids. We decided on a contractor. Sean Smith, our engineer, came out to do an assessment. What he noticed was the eaves on the roof needed to be replaced or repaired. And that was not in the contracts that we got. So he in turn made phone calls, and I believe no one has returned the call from that particular contractor. So we may be moving on with the second bid, but those were around the same amount. We had one that was way higher, and the 2 of those were about around the same, give or take a couple thousand. So we will, I guess, once council has agreed, then we will move on the roof. And that ends my report for Buildings and Grounds tonight.
Thank you, Councilwoman Martin. Next is Councilwoman Scarpese for General Government and Communities.
I have no report, but Erica has a report from her office.
Okay, wait till finance.
Okay, next up is Housing and Zoning. That's Councilman Giordano.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
For when you're for the government, clean communities, actually. We're in the process of ordering the dog holes that have the bags on them. I think we have 2, we have 1 for Barber Avenue Park, 1 for Memorial Park, and 1 for the Riverwalk. Is that right?
Right.
So 3.
4 would be better, but I don't.
I thought we didn't allow pets at Barber Avenue.
They're not.
They're not right
We
now.
don't.
So
But you're just saying in case somebody just does what they want to do.
it can go in the front.
Outside.
Oh, outside?
Yes.
Okay, okay. All right.
It doesn't carry it all back to outside.
We have to check on the money to see what we got, how much is left.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll figure out this.
Okay. All right, moving on to Housing and Zoning, Councilman Giordano.
I don't really have much to say as far as zoning. housing, I can tell you that, and I'll give you more information later. I did receive some information that Penn Grove Housing is going to entertain a party for DOT. Other than that, we are still in the process of auctioning off a lot of the borough properties. It hasn't gone to fruition yet. There's still some things that have to be ironed out. We had hoped it would be before the end of the year. I'm not sure that's going to take place now. That's all I have.
Thank you. Moving on to recreation, Councilman Carter.
Good afternoon, Mayor, and good evening. I apologize, Mayor, Council, and everybody else attending. For recreation, I don't have a report to give, but I'll just give a report on the trunk or treat that we just had this past Saturday. It was a great turnout. I appreciate everybody who helped from the school, from the teachers, from Mrs. Scott to Mr. Hill, who helped me plan everything. Anybody who did show up, Mr. Brown did come out also and showed his face out there. He had his son. House of Right came out. Carl Washington, he was out there. But I appreciate everybody who came out, helped. Roman Pantry donated pizza, something too much pizza. To be honest, it was so much pizza out there. It was crazy. But they helped donate pizza. EMS Cafe donated hot dogs and they had drinks. It was a great event. There was a lot of people that showed up. A lot of kids came out. I'm sure they got plenty of candy. Their parents probably hid it from them. But it was definitely a nice event that we will look forward to doing next year. And we do be on the lookout for the Thanksgiving parade that is coming up later this month. But outside of that, that is the only thing I can think of for recreation, and thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Carter. Okay, moving to Public Works, Streets and Roads, Councilman Rambo.
Good evening, everybody. I do not have a report. The best that I have tonight is Carnage Point Public Works has been jetting out our storm drains. Some of those have been not done for quite some time. They've also been filling potholes. Just we haven't gotten a report as of now to what they've done and where they've done it. So once we have that, I'll be able to have a report on where they've been. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, moving on to public safety, Council President Lindsay.
Thank you, Mayor. What I have is I talked to Councilwoman Martin the other day, and we asked the engineer, Mr. Sean Brown, if he can look into backup generator for this building. Because in light of all the storms and everything we have, if something go out, we in trouble. So he's looking to get us an estimate on that. Also, I talked to Andrea from Red Cross the other day after I was out there till 1:30 in the morning. And to the police officers and the first responders, kudos to you. I left them and they were still out there. And when I was talking to the mayor and them, they called me and I went out my front door, there was a boat. It didn't break away. They were getting in the boat to go rescue people. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot in the middle of the storm for them to go rescue people and get out. And with that said, sadly, it was only 7 families. They said that they put up in the apartment complex from Penn Village. Penn Village paid for them, but there was only 7 families and the Red Cross put up 3. So there was means for them to get out and get up, but they didn't want it. Yeah. They didn't want it. And at 1 o'clock, I think it was the bus left that was taking them up the road. Then a couple of people came after the fact, but now you don't miss the bus. So we're planning on having a meeting so we can work on getting these people out before the flood starts. And you know, they got to realize there's somewhere to go. I know people don't always have money if they can't afford something, but they got to come out and the Red Cross will work on putting them up. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Council President. Okay, moving on to departmental reports, business administrative report. Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, to the general public. I just want to give, as always, I just want to give a few highlights and updates on some of the most biggest things that are going on right now. First, I was able to meet with the finance team today, which includes our assistant treasurer, Erica Walker, and CFO, Steve Ladd, to talk about our priorities for the rest of the month, because we have some new grants and money. So we'll be working on purchasing. All staff in the boroughs asked to put in their requests or send their quotes in the next few days. We also, for code enforcement, I want to just highlight a few things. We have done our best to look at the most problematic areas. That includes Mallard Park, Tyrone, I say Tyrone Avenue. I know people here say Tyrone, but I don't see any on it, so I say Tyrone. But Tyrone/Tyrone Avenue, Cumberland Avenue. There are, and the good news is, code enforcement is never to be punitive. That's not the goal. The goal is compliance. The goal is for homeowners or landlords to take care of their properties. Some of the places I just named had a tremendous amount of 10-day notices in the last month. And after review, after 10 days, many, not all, but many of those issues were addressed, which means they had the 10 days to fix or address their issue. And in many of those cases they did. For those that they did not, they get a court summons and had to see a judge. As many smaller municipalities are challenged with that is the time period between the violation being seen for the first time and actually being seen before a judge could be 6 weeks or 2 months, because our court meets twice a month. I also want to note, I know the mayor's going to speak on this a little bit as well, but we are continuing to meet with our grant writers and apply for the grants that we can that deal with any of the big issues that we can, so that the burden of dealing with some of our big issues is not all on the taxpayer. Madam Mayor, if it's without objection, I just wanted to, just because council already voted tonight on a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes to one of our apartment complexes. Pilots typically have a very long term, 30 years. So this pilot actually dates back to the 70s. Wow. I'm going to ask Mr. Tarver to speak on it, because I think that Ms. Scarpese, as the governance chair, myself, we collected a lot of information from the governing body, from the staff, on what the issues and challenges were. And Mr. Tarver was able to take that information and finish negotiations on our behalf. This pilot, I want to go as far as saying it might be one of the best pilots in New Jersey from the way it turned out. And I'm just going to ask Mr. Tarver to speak on it.
Pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes, and what happens with those types of agreements is that we enter into agreements with developers or redevelopers or entities so that they can make changes to the property, rehabilitate the property, and make properties better, and get the financing to do it over a period of time. So they still continue to pay taxes on the land portion, but the other portions are spread out over a period of time. What we were able to do is we had been receiving certain complaints about a number of different areas, and we engaged in one of the agreements with the PGGA, which I think is Penn Gardens. One of the most important things I think about this pilot is there was at least some discussion about stormwater drainage. That's been a concern because there's been flooding, I think, at that apartment complex. One of the things we wanted to make sure that we did in this pilot was to make sure that the drainage system is actually repaired and made efficient. Apparently, there was overgrowth, which was the responsibility of the owners of that property. They allowed the drainage area to overgrow and form something that's almost like a wetlands area, so that you weren't getting efficient drainage. Because you weren't getting efficient drainage, that water was then going back into the apartment facilities, causing some of the problems that I think we saw just recently, as early as last week. So one of the things that's being addressed in this pilot is that there is a mandate that that be repaired. and that it be repaired in accordance with the New Jersey Administrative Code, as well as the Borough Code for stormwater drainage systems. Additionally, we are going to recognize at least, I believe, about $40,000 more in regular revenue that we recognized under the last pilot program. Structurally, a number of different things are being done. We had to make sure that they increased the fencing and upgraded the fencing so that it would be properly in line with our security needs, that there be a emergency type exit for emergency vehicles, because we want to make sure that should there be an emergency, even such as what occurred last week, that emergency vehicles can go in and out of the property, and so that it's law enforcement compliant, and they can do what they need to do to keep the residents and everyone else safe. One of the, I think, more important features is that your council persons suggested that it would be a wise thing if the pilot entity, which is PGGA, do something to give back to the community, give back to the municipality. So we are also in the process, not in the process, we've negotiated an agreement to have them give an actual sum of money, $125,000 back to the borough. You know, and your council members deserve strong credit for that. Well, I think it was the council members. And in fact, I don't want to point anybody out. I know I spoke to Councilwoman Scarpese about it. I think I spoke to Councilwoman N.J.S.A about it as well, and some others. But it's a good agreement. It's a necessary thing to have these pilots, and hopefully this will help us to move forward to at least begin to solve some of the stormwater issues that we have in this municipality.
Thank you, Mr. Tar. Mr. Tar, would you say a pilot like this, in your experience, where we get this both an annual increase, that, by the way, based off the formula that will continue to increase, and the one-time payment, is that unusual?
Yeah, it is. It's unusual to get all those things together. You know, we were very successful in doing that. And again, I'm not going to take all the credit for that. Your council members participated also in letting me know what they wanted, and we just moved forward with you know, making their asks known. So this was really a team effort from everybody here.
Last thing I was, yeah, good job, everybody. I think it's like shotgun. Like, it don't take time enough to celebrate the good stuff we got going on. The last thing, and this the last thing, is the website. So Tracy Thompson, who's with the police department, and I are working aggressively with Green Tech, our web designer. There's an event that's happening in a few weeks, the camp out event. The mayor is going to speak on. I'm only mentioning this because on the website now, on that page, you can actually, your registration form is right on there. Week by week, you're going to continue to see new information about government departments, the council members. There's a complaint section on the website. And when people say, hey, I want to know more about the auctions, or I want to buy a property, we're going to be rolling out more features. We'll announce those features on Facebook. You'll see it as announced as news on the actual website itself. So I would ask the mayor, council members, the general public, the staff to continue to pay attention to the website. If you see something that you want to change or update it, you can let us know, and we can do that. But the website is will, as the mayor has asked, could truly be a resource for not just government information, but for PENN's growth information. And that concludes my report. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, moving to the finance officer report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. So the tax rate collection percentage comparison for budget years, November 2nd, 2021 and November 2nd, 2020. Currently, collection rate has increased by 2.07%. Steve has completed federal 941 quarterly federal return, also completed the quarterly state 927W and WR30 report. In the office this week and last week, we basically focused on purchasing, ordering, quotes, and invoices. And that's really all I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving to the police director report. Director Rivera.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. How are you? So
Oh, you're breaking up. Director Rivera.
Points that have been already made regarding cannabis.
He sounds like he makes fun of me.
Director Rivera.
They teach you about getting marijuana.
You're Director Rivera. We're having a hard time hearing you. You're breaking up really bad.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time functioning.
I can imagine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Just to reiterate some of the points that were made regarding cannabis, our role is to advise council based on best practices. What are the trends? Crime was already mentioned, so you covered that. And then to support you in your decisions and then obviously engage in enforcement activity and be proactive once that decision is made, whether or not you invite the industry here. So we look forward to those continued discussions. Regarding the flood, I'm very proud of the officers. They really stepped up to the plate, particularly individuals like Corporal Fred and everyone under his command who helped local residents. It was a phenomenal coordination between John Ashcraft, the director of the Office of Emergency Management, the fire department, EMS. Everybody really came together. You had a council person there, the business administrator that was there, Mr. Brown. And it's important because when you're dealing with critical incidents and things that are rapidly evolving, you need to have that open line of communication with everyone so that things can transition quickly, decisions can be made, and the flow of communication is direct and everyone has access to it. Having said that, there were a lot of lessons that we're going to take away and that we're going to improve upon so that residents are aware of situations in advance through mass communication techniques and platforms that we're going to develop. And we're already talking to various vendors on the national level. We've met and we're looking to partner with the Office of Resiliency from Child Care Services. That's going really well. They have other programs established in other communities. They're looking for a formal partnership with the Penns Grove Police Department, which would be their first collaboration with a police department directly in the state. So that's really awesome and that's great news. The police department participated in a walking tour last week with middle school kids. It was a historical site review of different places throughout the community, and that was very positive. Mr. Brown came, he also spoke to the students and talked to them in a positive way so that they maintain upbeat and focus on their education and improving community. So that's going to continue, but we don't know how far we're going to get. We're going to need council support in the form of passing resolutions on 2 borough-owned properties, possibly to paint. And since it's getting colder, one of the things we're looking to do is buy plywood, and they'll be on 4x4 sheets. And then the kids would be able to paint them at the school, and then we'd be able to frame them and put them up on the buildings once it warms up in the spring. So that's a brief detail on the walking tour and the mural project. Last night, our officers were involved in a use of force incident at the Gardens. I want to clarify without going into too much detail because it's under investigation, but there's a lot of hype, misinformation, and disinformation being posted on Facebook. One of our officers was assaulted by a female. He then defended himself and also used force. It was appropriate use of force. We've already reviewed the video footage. The county prosecutor is going to be conducting a secondary review. So any misconceptions, any notions of excessive force, you could throw that right out the window. It doesn't exist. That didn't happen. The officers were not preemptive. They were the victims of these assaults, and they simply placed those individuals under arrest. Shootings. We had a shooting on West Pittman 2 days ago. No one was injured. If you notice, there's been less incidents. It's something that concerns us all in the community as well as at the police department. And regarding the shootings, what we've learned through intelligence and researching it, that there are isolated incidents relating to specific individuals. And if anyone read the N.J.S.A article just yesterday, where Nahir Bland was arrested and he was indicted, he was involved in 4 separate incidents, 3 of which occurred in Penns Grove. So that individual is currently in Salem County Jail, as well as Shakar Griffin and Tran Roots, who was living on Pittman Street. All 3 men were also indicted on October 6th on various weapon charges following a July 24th shooting. So as we reiterated, we're trying to share as much information as possible with the residents. These are incidents relating to a very select few number of individuals who are engaged in this criminal conduct and trying to demonstrate that this is an unsafe community when totally opposite. It's a very safe community. They're targeting each other. They're using guns purchased illegally outside of the state to conduct their businesses. And all these individuals, I would reiterate, are presumed innocent until proven guilty. That concludes my report for this week, Madam Mayor, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you, Director Rivera. Okay, moving on to Fire Chief report. Chief Adams.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Hope you can hear me.
Hi.
How are you? All right, couple things. I'm going to be just a little winded today. So for the month of October, we had 1 investigation, 1 mutual aid, 1 ambulance assist, 4 CO detector activations, 1 alarm system, 2 MVAs, and 2 other incidents. Also in that report, we had 7 water rescues last Friday night, 7 calls, with a total of taking about 50 people out of Penns Grove, between Penns Grove Gardens, between Penn Village, and Mill Street and Strongsville Lane. Look, I gotta give cahoots to all these people that came out the other night. With Penns Grove Ambulance Squad, the Water Rescue Team, Carneys Point Fire Department, Pettertown. I'm sure I'm going to miss somebody else in there, but we had a lot of resources out there. I was in contact with the mayor. I was also in contact with Sean. You know, me and John Ashcraft were back and forth. We were very, very, very busy Friday night. And I want to give kudos to the Red Cross for coming out. You know, after we got the game plan together as far as getting them where they needed to get, it's good to hear that there's only 7 people that had to be housed, because I know we took 50 people. That includes adults, children, and I left out the animals, the dogs, the cats, the birds, and everything else that went along with it. I also was out there till 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. It started out probably around 6:30. You know, that old saying, they say, turn around and don't drown. That is true. It started out with 2 vehicles, one on State Street, on Strong's Lane, and then the other one in Penns Grove Gardens. You know, don't drive in this high water. You're putting us all at risk. You're putting yourself at risk. Stay out of the high water. The other thing is, I guess everybody noticed that the parking lot behind the firehouse is done. It looks very good. I want to thank everybody that was involved in that. It's an excellent job. And that's all I have now, unless somebody has some questions for me.
Thank you, Chief Adam.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to the ambulance. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Carter.
No, I was just clapping. The only thing I would say to the fire chief and to Director Rivera is thank you guys both for your participation and helping these residents out with the floods this past weekend.
And Mayor, I am sorry, I do have one more. I did forget to mention the police department. They were a big help job, believe me.
Hold on, Chief Adam. I think they muted themselves. Okay, go ahead, Chief Adam, sorry.
I just wanted to put a thanks out there to the police department too, because I didn't mention them. I said there was a lot of people out there, but they were, Bobby, Corporal Fred and all them, they really did a good job in helping us out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That was the EMS captain report. Debbie Adler.
I'll try to be brief because we have been here a long time tonight. For the month of October, we had 88 calls. We're over 700 calls for the year, which is about on target what we used to do, about a little under 1,000 calls a year. Cost of gas is up. One of the things I had tried before to do is get the borough to start using the county for fuel, and I never could get it done. So like today, I filled up the ambulance, it was almost $100 for a half a tank. So it doesn't get good gas mileage, it's like 8 miles to the gallon. It's not very good, and it's a gas engine. The diesel's just as bad. So that's one thing that maybe next year you could look into. I know that I run on Pedder County ambulance and we do fuel out there. I didn't know what. I don't know how to get it. I don't know.
What's the department?
It's the road department,
Road
but
department.
it probably comes under some sort of finance department too, right? I mean, I'm assuming, because it's a charge account.
Might have to do like an interlocal agreement or something.
Yeah, so I don't know, but you probably don't pay a lot of taxes like you do at the pump. It's good to have the backup, and then the police department can also do it. They're always going out to the jail. They can hit it once in a while and still have the backup of the local gas station, because you can't always get out there. Hospitals are still on divert. If you have meetings with someone from the state, could you please talk to them about Salem Hospital? It's a constantly on divert. Okay, tonight they're on divert because they don't have a CAT scan machine. So that makes the residents have to go further away. That gets them upset because they're used to going to the hospital they're used to. And then they don't have rides home. So sometimes they might not go just for that reason. Okay. So I don't know who you talk to, whether it's the state, it's the county. If you get a chance to talk about it, I would. Okay. What's that?
Still not, when I got no staff.
That's true too. They are, it's a sinking ship. Whatever they tell you, it's a sinking ship. Okay, there's rumors that N.J.S.A is looking to buy it. And I think it's a very strong rumor. I just don't know when or if it will happen.
I can actually speak on that because I'm an employee of Salem Hospital and we do have N.J.S.A. They were in on Monday doing our tour, so we're hoping within the next 6 months. And we did just hire a bunch of RNs, so we're opening our second floor back up. So we're hoping that we can get back up and moving and be able to get off the divert for once, but we are trying to move forward. Oh, sorry, I'm Mandy.
What's your name?
She's a girl in pink.
Mandy?
Yes.
Our new deputy.
Yes. I'm sorry.
And again, the flooding that we had happen here, I think it hasn't happened since 2015. I was here for that one as well. This one was probably just as bad. Maybe not as bad because I didn't get sewage into my house this time. But the people that drive through these waters, I stopped people right in front of my house, live on State Street, and they just went right on by me into the water. So that causes a lot of problems. The fire department and my husband, who's on the water team, I can't say enough. Those guys, they carry kids out, dogs, cats in boxes, kids crying, shaking. Maybe a future planning, if we know something like that's coming, because we do get a couple days notice, is to have people prepare, have a little bag ready to go. They're carrying out trash bags that are falling apart because they don't have something. I don't know, maybe there's something that a grant could give them a little bag so they can pack some things together. They can't bring a lot because they're going to go on a boat, right? But the essentials, and you pack that ahead of time, it wouldn't be as stressful. It's gonna be stressful, but not as bad. You have your medicines and things like that. But everybody did a very good job. As far as I know, there was no injuries. And that's a big job not to have any injuries. So everyone worked well together, police, fire, everybody. So I thank you. You guys always got my back. And that's about it.
Thank you, Ted. Mr. Ashcraft?
I'm not on the agenda,
No, you're not.
even though I am at the.
Is there anything you'd like to?
Considering the hour, I will try to keep my remarks under 60 minutes. You guys can do beating a dead horse. Anyhow. Full levity. It's gonna end right now. I thought I would start off, if you don't mind, give you a little background and facts of what happened Friday night. In the most basic layman terms. A weather system developed, a low pressure system, probably a nor'easter, formed in our area, heavy winds, and the winds were at the proper wrong direction to push a lot of wind and water onshore. You might have heard as you watched the weather forecast, onshore flow. They ravaged Cape May County and Atlantic, and just because of this wind blowing in the direction it was, it also pushed water up the Delaware Bay and into the Delaware River. And I gotta tell you that Salem County basically was in the bullseye where the National Weather Service for flooding. We had historically high water, flood water. The current number from the National Weather Service is somewhere between 9.5 and 9.8 feet. That is a record. That is a height above mean low water. I don't expect all of you to understand that. I'm sorry. It's not like we got a lot of water. When we have that much water, the level of that water exceeds, if we do have some bulkheads or just the ground, it comes over the top. And it happens. As opposed to rainwater, and we could be summertime thunderstorms, and they can cause some flood. So everybody wants to know, you all feel it, I feel it. How are you going to fix this? I'm going to give you a hard dose of reality. There is no perfect fix. When the water was as high as it was, there is no keeping your feet dry here in Penn's Grove, to use that term. None. The water coming over was such a volume that even if you were able to pump it, there wasn't the pumping volume to get rid of it. Plus, where are you going to pump that water to? It's like a circle. You pump it out, it goes out the river, and comes right back in. So all this flooding occurred at high tide. I will always remember the high tide occurred at 7:08 p.m. And we were starting to have some flooding by 5:30. We were not alone. Carnes Point, Pennsville, Hancock's Bridge, Elsinboro, everybody in Salem County that was on the waterfront, Salem City, suffered some flooding. So I say there is no perfect solution. And I'm not going to steal anything if our engineer is still on, but he and I are basically on the same page. There are some things we can do to make our flooding less severe. And I think we've already talked about opening up ditches, making sure that our storm water pipes are taking the amount of water they can handle, full capacity. I'm going to tell you one that is probably not very popular, and you can beat me up later on this. In the, I believe it's in the insurance industry, there is a term referred to as repetitive loss. The same places get hit and hit and hit again. And the insurance companies get better with paying off on that. There are structures in the borough that probably should not exist. I never should have been built there, and they should not exist. And I'll come out and be honest with everybody. I'll tell you one of them are I'm sorry to say, the residences at Strong's Lane. Those are repetitive losses. And I will also tell you that J&K building in Penn Village, most of these places never would have been able to be built today, knowing about stormwater and how that affects the community. For anybody that's lived in town as long as I have, I won't ask the question, I'll give you the answer. What used to be where Penn's Grove Gardens is right now? Yeah.
That sounds like North.
Carlton Woods. I used to walk home from school every day down the track. So this is basically a boggy, they refer to as a natural sponge. So when it rains, the water or floods, the water sits there and is absorbed back into the soil, goes in the groundwater. So you put up structures and parking lots, and now all that water has to run somewhere. And where does it run? Into those ditches that need to be better maintained. Penn Towers, it's in my backyard. I can tell you that, yes, there were houses and businesses on South Broad Street and Railroad Avenue. But the area right behind me was another one of these boggy areas. We paved it over, we put up a big structure. I can tell you, I feel the effect of that flooding in my backyard. One takeaway. I can tell you something that doesn't cost the borough anybody, it doesn't require grant money. That everybody in this town can help the flooding issue. Clean up the damn trash. I don't know, I think it clogs up storm drain quicker than water bottles, beer bottles, soda cans, wrappers. Just go out front and pick up your trash, please. I just cut my grass tonight. I took 4 water bottles out of the gutter. We can't get beyond the fact that Penn's Grove is geographically located at or below sea level, give or take a few feet where you are now, and we're next to a large body of tidal water. Tide comes in, tide goes down, and we have to suffer the consequences of that tidal water sometimes. We could do better, but if anybody has, I've heard all emergency managers talk like this. And as soon as there's an emergency, I feel in fire service too, everybody becomes an instant expert on everything. Whether it be if there's a house on fire, somebody has never fought a lick of fire in their life, all of a sudden there's a fire chief. There's flooding, everybody's an instant meteorologist, hydrologist, engineer, you name it, they've got all the solutions. There is no perfect solution, but we can do better. But that's the end of my flooding speech. I have one other issue. I had the privilege of serving the borough of Penn's Grove in various capacities for over 40 years. 40 years in fire service, 35 in emergency management. Off and on at times, but because I think that's what responsible citizens need to do, be part of the community. As President Kennedy said way back when, don't ask what your town or your country can do for you, what you can do for your country. That's why I've done what I do. And I've had some fun doing it too. That being said, I have some real serious concerns, with all due respect to everyone in this room, about what's going on here in the borough. I refer to it as command and control. That's kind of a fire service and military term about who's in charge and all this. I'm very frustrated by it. My second issue is I have some questions, not questions, comments about respect or lack of respect
regarding both myself and family members. And folks, I'm gonna come right to the point. I quit. I quit. My resignation is effective this evening. I wish you all well. I'm done. I'm done.
John, thank you for your service, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashcraft. Okay. All right. Moving on to attorney report.
My report, actually, we scheduled an executive session, so the only thing I have is just an executive session report to give the council with regard to the case. Yes.
Okay, I'll make my comments really quick, because you've been here forever. First and foremost, I'm very sorry to hear Mr. Ashcraft is on. I want to immediately thank everyone who was involved with rescuing residents last Friday during the flood. I know we've talked about it throughout the meeting. People have thanked everyone, but I haven't done that. So I want to thank Mr. Ashcraft, the American Red Cross, Council President Mincy, Borough Administrator Brown, EMS Captain Debbie Ashcraft, Fire Chief Adam Hartzell and the Fire Department, Corporal Frank and the officers of the Pennsboro Police Department, Salem County Prosecutor's Office, and anyone else whom I didn't mention. Thank you to everyone for working to keep people safe, rescue people, and help families find shelter. I also want to welcome, we have a new SLEO 2 officer, Josh Gray. Pennsboro. We're happy to have you. Hello, Officer Christian Acevedo. Nice to see you. I also want to welcome Mandy Renner, who we had a pleasure of meeting a little earlier, our new deputy clerk. Also, Mr. Brown talked about in terms of the flooding and all that. We have a meeting with the grant writer tomorrow to discuss the options for our pumps erosion and flooding. We are monitoring the pumps. And I'm very happy and grateful to everyone who was involved in helping the fire station parking lot get done. That's been a project that's been on the books for a while. So I'm happy to see that get completed. And I want to talk about the election briefly. I want to congratulate Councilman Rambo and Councilwoman Scarpese and Sonia Worthy. They are the folks that won the election. In terms of the turnout, I want to make this real quick. We need, as a community, we need to show up for elections, not just presidential elections, but we need to show up for every election. We had a very, very low turnout, very low turnout. And I know we all want change. I hear it all the time. I get 50 to 60 messages in my inbox every day. Keeps me busy. So I know we all want change, but you can't just be on Facebook complaining to each other, complaining and talking about it. You can't do that and then you don't show up to vote. So what I want to say is I know who the complainers are. And when I get that list, I want to see if they voted. Because you have to, if you want things to change, you have to vote. You have to vote. Doesn't matter who you want to vote for. This is America. You can vote for anybody you want to, but vote. So I want to put something together, a workshop, we can talk about it, but I think there needs to be a major education here with our residents in terms of voting and why their vote matters, because a lot of people think, and they told me yesterday, my vote doesn't count. That is not true, but it's because they don't understand how government works. So I think there needs to be a major education for our residents here in Pennsboro. So there'll be more information about that, but I wanted to share my thoughts on that. Also the camp out, November 13th. I guess I'll be in the park camping out in cold for 10. But I want to thank everyone who put that together, and it's Shore Am, which stands for Tanisha Shorter and Monique Amity. They're the two young ladies that came to us and decided that they wanted to put a camp out together. So I want to thank them for putting that together, and I look forward to participating. Also, I want to tell everyone about the dates that we are going to be closed at the Borough, which was yesterday, Tuesday, November 2nd. Thursday, November 11th is Veterans Day. November 25th and 26th will be closed for Thanksgiving and Black Friday. And for all other weekdays, the Borough Hall is open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The meeting dates for November council meetings, the next one is Tuesday, the 23rd, and then we're having a special meeting next week, as it was mentioned earlier. Also, we're having a parade November 27th, so thank you to our parade chairperson, Tubby, and Councilman Rambo. They are working together along with members of council to put that together, so there'll be more information about that. And then Bishop Freddie Washington is putting together a gospel festival that will take place November 21st at the riverfront. So we'll have more information. As soon as I see a flyer, I'll share it with everybody. So I thank him for doing that for the community. And last but not least, thank you for everyone who put together the trunk or treat. Thank you to Councilman Carter, I think it's Joe Hill, Tubby, Sean, and all the Recreation Department. Everyone, the Teachers Association, everyone who showed up and participated, thank you for doing that. I was out of town, I had a family emergency, so I missed it. I had my costume all picked out.
Have the winners? Have the winners?
No, who are the winners?
There were some good ones out there, though.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll share that at the next meeting. That's all I have. Let's see, okay. Appointments. Tanaya Thomas to Liberty One Fire Department. I'll need a motion to approve that appointment. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Council President Mincy. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Giordano. Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call vote?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Councilman Giordano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Martin,
Yes.
Council President Mincy,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Moving to old business, the Pennsboro Housing Authority's request to support Thanksgiving dinner for residents. I guess are we doing that? I thought they were supposed to find out if we could. Mr. Brown, did you get an answer on if we could support the Thanksgiving dinner for the residents, for the Pennsboro Housing Authority? Or is that a legal question?
It's somewhat of a legal question. Well, let me put it this way. We know for sure that if it's, when's your birthday, August 20th? Okay, 21st. Okay, so if it's the mayor's birthday, we can't use borough money to have a celebration for the staff and buy you cake with tax dollar money to celebrate your birthday. I can pull it out of my pocket or whatever. The same, so just as we couldn't spend money here for food, nor can we spend it on any resident or any organization. Ms. Mincy and I were talking the other day about a church that requested something, and she made a good point, which is that if you say yes to one, you have to then, it opens you up to everybody to be fair. So this leaves us just a question of, we can absolutely support the event, we can't buy food directly, so what can we do? And I guess we're open for options and ideas.
Okay, what are they asking for? How much?
So let me back up. I have a call in with Katharina, and let me talk to her tomorrow and see exactly what, like, I just need to learn more about the event, what it's like, see what their needs are, and then see if there's a space for us to be a partner in that.
Space, thinking about dinners.
Not physical space. I mean, like opportunity to see what we can do.
Doesn't know.
Well, there is, it's a food, it is now.
Well, that's, we usually give them money for food. 'cause
Right.
We actually gets paid the bill. They see the bill after the dinner.
Do you know how much it is?
I don't recall it.
I mean, like,
I don't
about-
think we did anything. Maybe. I don't even wanna. Guess.
I'll call you.
Okay.
All right, so there's more discussion on that. Okay, moving on to public portion. Anyone from the public have a question?
Just do business.
And before, listen, you guys, I don't want to stay here all night anymore. I have Red Cross buckets for just.
Oh, you still have some?
I have like 2 dozen
Oh, okay. Good.
at the annual talk, you know, so I can bring some up here if you want.
Okay.
But I don't want to keep them. There's a lot of them. So there were buckets they gave people to clean their homes after the flood waters came in. I'm not really sure what's in them, but I'm assuming it's a bunch of cleaning supplies. All right.
All right, we do have something under new business. We have a resolution 2021-11-130, which is a resolution appointing Sean Brown as the 504 coordinator for the USDA grant. Mr. Trump, can you give it?
Let me see if I can explain this to you. The borough is looking to get the USDA grant for police equipment. As part of that grant package, we have to fill a comprehensive package of information. One of the things that they're requesting is that we have a Section 504 coordinator. Section 504 under the USDA actually regulates funds for low-income housing. We're not getting a Section 504 grant, but they're asking for a Section 504 coordinator in any case. So in order to move the process along, this just came to us today, in order to move the process along and to get to that particular portion of being able to fill out that paperwork, we're asking that Mr. Brown be appointed as the Section 504 coordinator for purposes of us being able to fulfill that position.
Thank you, Mr. Tarver.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can I just ask that we, instead of putting my name, that you put business administrator? So it's the position.
That's probably more appropriate.
That is appropriate. Okay. So can we have, so we'll amend that to business administrator and borough administrator. Okay. May I have a motion to adopt the amended resolution appointing the business administrator as a 504 coordinator for the USDA grant? Thank you, Council President Mency. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Carter. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call vote, please?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Councilman Giordano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Martin,
Yes.
Council President Mency. Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you. We have one more item.
Yes, we do.
Two more. Three more.
As council, as you're aware, under your resolutions this evening, you did pass a resolution with regard to procedure for handling business under the statute N.J.S.A. 40A11-6, which provides for an emergency expenditure of funds for emergencies. There are two categories of emergencies under there. There are emergencies and there are time-based emergencies. One of the items that came up that Councilwoman Martin discussed was the roof of the borough here. And I had actually spoken to Councilman Giordano on a prior occasion on this. We had several quotes. The responsive quote that we were, that the council, I think, is ready to move forward on is the quote from Grandview Exteriors, which provides for the complete roofing of the borough hall, including the eaves, at a cost of $22,000. So I bring that to you under this prior procedure that you've already approved, and ask for a resolution regarding the expenditure of those funds and the contracting of Grandview Exteriors for the roofing project of this Borough Hall under an emergency basis. I need someone to move that, if that's the, you agree with that?
I'll make the motion to hire Grandview is it exteriors to provide roofing of this building for $22,000.
May I have a second? Second.
Second,
Thank you, Council President Mency. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call, please?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Councilman Giordano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Martin,
yes.
Council President Mency,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpelli.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.
And the last new business resolution that came up from our monitor. That is we have to-
I don't,
It's a resolution from the monitor regarding the park plans.
yes,
Can you give the verbiage of
Yes.
what need to go with that?
yes. So the report that we heard from Councilman Martin earlier. So, you know, we got the $450,000 as a transitional aid supplement. Because of the dollar amount, the state monitor once added to that a resolution from council agreeing that the funds will be spent on the park as described by Councilwoman Martin of the Buildings and Grounds Committee and for demolition. To be clear, we have identified our engineer has identified 3 homes all on Cumberland Avenue for demolition. And we have money for somewhere between 3 to 6 more properties to be demolished. DCA, the way the process is, somebody from here gives DCA a list of homes, they inspect those homes, condemn those homes, and then once they're condemned, they get knocked out.
Thoroughly.
Hmm.
The borough.
No, I'm talking about non-borough owned. Borough owned, our engineer can review. Non-borough owned, it has to come from DCA construction office.
The ones that are here.
Yes, the ones that are signed. So Patrick, Maria, and I have an email relationship. If anyone sees a house in Penns Grove, shoot for you two in the public. If you know of a property or house in Penns Grove that looks like it's standing on its last leg, there might be 1 or 2. Yeah, let me know immediately so I can send this to DCA because I really want to send them addresses and because what we do is we're guessing what should be demolished. They're looking at it from a structural point of view, and then they're giving the final verdict. Nonetheless, the resolution itself has to be that the monies from the transitional aid application will be spent as described in the report given earlier.
I could jump on 3.
You have a house?
Did you forget the one on the corner of Penn and Popular?
That's like that's 101, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, and, what street is that? That's not land. No, that's land, yeah.
All right, can I have a motion, please?
Information to spend money as described by our state monitor for Borough Avenue Park and for demolition of properties that have been condemned.
Thank you, Councilwoman Scarpese. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Giordano. Madam Clerk, can you do roll call?
Councilman Carter,
Yes.
Councilman Giordano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Martin,
Yes.
Council President Mency,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese.
Yes.
All affirm, motion passes.
Thank you, everyone.
Special meeting.
Well, I have one I need to. The interlocal agreement with the tax office in Carnes Point, I believe that's ready to go. But okay. That was my second question. Is that the other one? Okay. That's all.
Okay, that's it, right?
Special meeting.
Okay, we need a motion. Okay, we have a motion to have a second for special meeting.
Rob, we need to vote on this?
No.
Okay, so
Oh,
we'll just schedule it, right? Okay, all right. Okay, we're moving on to public portion. I think everybody knows keep it quick. What date are we doing the special meeting?
19.
I thought it was next week.
Yes.
That's not next. Next.
Today's the third.
Next week is the week of meeting.
The next Friday.
It's the 19th.
Oh, I'm saying this because don't you need a certain amount of time to advertise?
48 hours.
Okay.
So are we gonna do it next Tuesday the 9th? Does that work for everyone?
At the regular time, 6:30 or earlier.
Now, is this going to be a special meeting and a work session? Then you can do your work session as well if you're already meeting.
We'll deal with that later. Yeah, we'll figure that out. 6:30 next Tuesday. All right, public portion. Anyone from the public have any questions or comments?
Hi, for you, 7.5 hour avenue, I'm gonna sit down, so you don't think I'm trying out for Dancing with the Stars. I'm just gonna, I'll make it brief. I have a question about the redevelopment board. I've read both of the ordinances and I just don't like the way you decided you were gonna choose the amount of people and the years you were going to have them for. You think it might be better, instead of having just names, that we try to have people compose the redevelopment to get representation from all the different sections that should be included in it, like for instance, maybe have a couple Councilman Mincy and maybe Councilperson Scarpese on the thing, and then maybe the sewage chairman, sewer board, the park and recreation, some nonprofit, some business from the business community, one or two from the planning board, maybe the middle school principal, somebody from the school board, the zoning officer. In other words, people who can put together and think about how they want to redevelop the town and have a stake in the redevelopment, rather than just submitting, say, 4 names from the mayor, 1 from each council person. Unless you're going to tell each one of these council people and you're going to pick somebody that's going to represent what we want to have.
Well, I think for my names, I think you, Councilman Rambo, Ray Halderman,
Right.
and I forget.
Great names except for me.
Melina.
Yes, Melina Williams.
Okay. And you know, we haven't met yet or even talked about me.
Right. And I think that was one of the resolutions we've been talking about as far as putting terms in there.
Yeah.
For the members.
Yeah, whoever drafted that resolution, drafted it without terms.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I saw that tonight, and then I don't like it.
Okay.
Which doesn't mean it, to preface it, I make homemade cranberry sauce every Thanksgiving and take it to the meal. Nobody likes it but me, so. Thank you for
Can
it.
you leave your suggestions up here?
You think you can read that?
Probably not.
And then I sent when I was on council, I sent a whole bunch of things on redevelopment. So. But, you know, we can go. Can we have a working, can we have like a working meeting? Can Sean Brown call a working meeting of some people and go over stuff like this and then write it up? If he's not too busy. Are you busy?
Mr. Repute is mentioning that the meetings are subject to the Open Public Meetings Act.
Right.
So he's wondering how the group can legally meet the first time without being fully assembled.
They are or are?
They are.
They are?
Yes.
We can't have a working meeting ahead of time to talk about how to structure it a little better and other ideas. We
You're
can't do
talking
that.
about structure as opposed to.
Actually, yeah,
The government of the borough.
Yeah, exactly, like.
Create the structure.
Yeah, like who should be included, like, you know, our town has a limited amount of land. And out of that land, maybe we have 10% or 12% is nonprofit. Is that a good redevelopment plan? To have that much nonprofit? And then our schools they have a big stake in what we're gonna do in redevelopment. And the other thing is, I'm glad you're canceling the auctioning off properties, because we haven't even met yet. We don't even have an idea of maybe what properties might be something that we don't want to sell. It doesn't fit into our redevelopment scheme.
You can't, what has to happen though is presumptively we need to move forward with that second reading of that particular ordinance to make sure that the terms are set so that we can set everyone's terms. Time on the board. As soon as you do that, you can move forward, I believe.
I was going to suggest, why can't the first year be everybody only 1 year?
The problem with that is then you're dealing with, the reason why we structure and stagger these things is so that every year or 2 years, you don't end up having to make 9 different appointments, which can sometimes be a difficult thing. Instead, there may be this number of appointments here, and then the next year, this number of appointments, so that people also get the chance to work together and pass the knowledge on to the next group, and everybody's not leaving all at once.
I understand that, but we're inventing the wheel here first, so. We don't, do we have to invent a wheel and have a 3-year term for a wheel? And we don't even know it should be a wheel?
If we call this a committee rather than a board, I think that we can alleviate some problems.
Well, maybe we need to have a separate.
Well, anyhow, I don't.
Yeah, let's have another, I think that's more of it.
But I'm ready to serve, Mayor, but, a couple more months, I'll put my resignation in.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else from the public? Anyone? Do I have to, yes, you have to stand up, state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Gina Morgan and I live in Pittsburgh, Florida, apartment 24B. So I'm very concerned about the flooding aspect. And I want to comment on the voting in Penns Grove. I've been here about 5 years and I feel some type of way about voting for people I don't get to meet besides in a piece of paper. So I kind of feel like if they did some type of meet and greet events that the community could pick out at and tangibly meet the people, talk to them, and if we have personal questions, we might want to ask them. Paper and then have to go to the polling place. People, you don't have a personal contact. You got vote for, you ain't gonna come out and vote. I came out and vote because I exercised my right as a citizen, but that's the only reason why I came out and vote. I don't personally know most of the people I vote for, or why I'm voting for them, and then I don't see them no more after we vote. So that's just a comment I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Very good.
Anyone else from the public?
Can I stop from back here? My leg is hurt.
Yes.
N.J.S.A. Ordinary Street. First, I would like to congratulate all the council who have won. Congratulations, Rambo, Scarface, and Worley. Congratulations. Looking forward to seeing what you guys can do next year. The other thing of it is I'm very excited and looking forward to for this Thanksgiving parade for November 27th. So I'll be getting in contact with different ones to find out exactly what I need to do, what has already been done, as far as what you guys have already put together ahead of time before I was appointed. And also, I'm looking forward to hurrying up and creating a little Miss Penns Grove and little Mr. Penns Grove pageant, so that we can at least have a little Mr. Penns Grove participants to put into the parade. We haven't done one in years. Last time we always used it at the senior building, Penn Towers. So I'll be getting with them tomorrow to see what I can put together so that we can have that, so that they can also be a part of to bring that back. Since this is going to be our first parade. So if y'all need me anything, please feel free to reach out to me. Any suggestions, anybody want me to contact or anything. Mr. Rambo, I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Real quick for now, West Harmon Street. I did want to address on Walnut Street, on South Broad, there's a vacant land. I don't know what code enforcement or who's in charge of that, but there's been dumping there. There's trash cars from IGA, Dollar General with rubbish, I don't know.
What's the address?
It's right there on Walnut Street and South Broad, yes, at the end.
That's the correct design.
Oh.
Gas station.
They just have, somebody just bought that.
Well, yeah, I'm not aware of the water or whatever, but even if it did buy it, I'm assuming they have to clean it up and stuff. Also, I did want to second whatever one of our neighbors did say about meeting candidates. I do want to congratulate, Rambo, Worley, and Scarpese for winning. But also, I know there's Facebook pages where we can communicate with the mayor and stuff. But then, as well as the other council personnel, I know there's emails, of course, on the website for this, but how can you communicate with you guys on Facebook? I know some comments, people want to ask questions and they demand answers. Sometimes they're not available. It's a social media platform without being approved. But you know how there's no check mark, but I know if people want to see answers, usually Facebook is seen as, everyone has it. And not many of the councilmen are active on it. Maybe the mayor and Ms. Scarpese is. Maybe if they can do something about that, on the website, if they have questions or Q&A or something, or it can be more visible to people. And just a subject for the high school, the boys are traveling to Paul Meyer to do the delay round 2 against Paul Meyer, like I said, at 4. So if you can look them up, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. And what's the date that they're going to?
They are traveling tomorrow. Yes.
How can we wish them?
Facebook, they are, I'm active on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, so wishing them something, we'll definitely wish them up.
Oh, is that football or basketball?
That's boys soccer.
Boys soccer,
Boys soccer.
which we never give them shout out. It is a football type of sport. Okay. I will do that. Okay. All right, anyone else?
Hello? Yes, hello.
Yes, state your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Cesar Valenciano. I'm calling from Edgewater, New Jersey.
Hi, Mr. Valenciano.
How are you today?
Good.
Awesome, awesome. Glad to hear that. I'm sorry, I missed the part where I just wanted to get the addresses that were being put up for demolition on Cumberland.
The addresses weren't stated.
The address.
Yeah, the addresses we weren't stated earlier. But if you do want to know, can you can call Mr. Brown. Can you give him the number? Send Sam your number in the chat.
Share, yeah, can you share this? Because she only shared.
Is there a phone number that I can call Mr. Brown at maybe tomorrow?
We're about to send it to you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, can we just state it? Yeah, sure.
Oh, the number or the address?
Yeah, you just call the Borough Hall.
Yeah, I wanted to just give the Borough Hall. All right, 856.
Mr. Valenciano, here's the number.
Yeah. Yes.
856 381
9245.
Okay, and I speak to Mr. Brown and I can call him tomorrow morning?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Text first, if you can. It's a cell phone.
Okay. All right, no problem. I'll go ahead and text you now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And be blessed.
You too. Okay. This portion is closed. Now we have the last thing on the agenda is a resolution authorizing executive session, resolution 2021-11. 2029. Now, therefore be it resolved that the mayor and council of the Borough of Pennsboro will go into closed session to discuss the following, in accordance with aforesaid provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, after which it will reconvene in the public. This is a matter relating to litigation and attorney-client privilege pursuant to New Jersey statute 10-4-12B-7. Have a motion to adopt. Thank you, Councilwoman Scarpese. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Giordano. Madam Clerk. Roll call.
Councilman Carter,
Yeah.
Councilman Giordano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Martin,
Yes.
Council President Mency,
Yes.
Councilman Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese.
Yes.
All affirmation passes.
Thank you.
The matter is Alvarado versus Borough of Pennsboro. All right, can you clear the room? So we'll be.
Good night.
6 minutes. So we need to get rid of everybody.
Okay.
For the sheriff's safety.
Sharon,
Yes.
am I go or at that?
No, you need to stay, so she can learn how to.
She can learn that. Here forever. At nights.
Well, we are taking for 12 o'clock. We've been outvoted with the break.
Can we? We believe.
Oh, okay.
It's good work.
Like it if I did now.
Where you go?
You gotta come back.
Now, we make the motion for what? For the
Motion for settlement.
Okay.
Motion for authority to settle.
I would motion to authorize $9,500
Do we need to wait for the people to come in?
to make settlement.
Second. Thank you, Councilman Scarpese. Councilman Giordano made the motion, right? Okay. Madam Clerk, can you roll call?
Councilman Carter,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Martin,
Yes.
Council President Mency,
Yes.
Council Rambo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scarpese. Yes. All affirmation passes.
Thank you. If everybody's coming out, God bless you.
Motion.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Yes.
So you tired.
Think everyone's coming out? God bless you tonight.
Sessions. Those.
Good night.